And we are back with Survivor 42 and 42. Just finished watching Ghost Island. I will admit that I slept through some of it, not all of it, not even the majority of it, but there were a few episodes where I was zonked, and I'm not going to go back and watch the episodes. I know what happened. Um, we are joined today by both Jackson and Naomi. We're going to get to their hot takes in just a second. But I want to just put out there again that this Sunday will be the final day of this. I will be live streaming the entire day for season 42. So I would appreciate any support. And I'm hoping to have a lot of the guests that we've had throughout this, popped in for 5 minutes or so. But Jackson, what is your all-time Survivor hot take?
My all-time Survivor hot take, it would have to. It doesn't even pertain to the season, but EOE is an amazing season and a top 10 season. Nobody's gonna agree with me, but that's okay.
We'll,
For
we get to
Ghost
talk about that in a
Island,
couple days. So,
for Ghost
uh,
Island, this pre-merge is amazing.
you should have started with that one, Naomi.
Well, Andrew, thank you for having me. As you know, I have a hot take Survivor podcast, and there have been a lot of hot takes that I've heard over time. But I think my hottest take that I've just developed after watching a whole season in like a couple days is I think that we need to change how tribal council happens because tribal council is a waste of like 8 minutes of my life when I know either exactly what's going to happen or everybody is talking in code and you're really like just waiting to see them put the name to parchment. We need to spice it up. We need to change it up. Jeff Probst go back to the drawing board and figure out something more entertaining these days.
So, how would you change it?
So this is just honestly, I've just been thinking about this today because every time we watch Tribal Council, it's really sort of like people all bluffing each other and talking in code. I don't know how it changed it, but to me, the people who complain about live tribals, I'm like, this is way more interesting to me than a regular tribal because this is people showing their cards. Who do you want to whisper to? Who are you trying to tell a plan? Hey, you didn't tell me a plan. What's going on here? So I'm not fully sure. Maybe it's like Jeff Probst, like they legally have to tell the truth. Who knows? I don't know. I'll workshop it and come back to you.
Okay, I like that one. I will say that the EOE thing, I won't say it's top 10 or anything, but it's one of those seasons that I'm really looking forward to do a rewatch for. Which that would be Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Um, but as far as Ghost Island having a great pre-merge, I've got thoughts. So as I said at the beginning of this episode, every time I watch Ghost Island, I really want to give it a chance because I do enjoy some people on the cast. The problem I have had every single time I've watched it is one, I don't remember most people. When they showed Morgan on camera today, I texted Jackson and I said, "Who the hell is Morgan? I don't remember this person existing at all." And then when she got the legacy advantage, I'm like, "Okay, so this person is important and I don't remember her," which is a wild thing for me because I remember very obscure things, especially when it comes to Survivor, and I didn't remember that at all. I feel like this season runs into the problem that every single season in the 30s has run into of the editing problem, where we are going to bury everyone else for the sake of one or two people, and it gets to the point where you know nothing about Chelsea. You know nothing really about Seabass. You know nothing about Jenna. Jenna, was her name Jenna? Yes, it was. See, you know nothing about Libby. You know that Michael Yerger is 18, and that's
Michael
about it.
Yerger's 18? Oh
Yeah,
my
wild,
god.
wild. So, what did you? We'll start with you, Jackson. What did you think of how the players were edited this season, besides Dom and Wendell?
Oh God, awfully. So yeah, obviously Dom and Wendell takes most of the spotlight, and we get to know Dom and Wendell pretty much out of the gate, especially Dom within the first couple of episodes. You're like, all right, cool, we have some pretty important characters coming up. And then you kind of see like some other characters kind of slip through the wayside. Like you said, you forgot all about Morgan. Morgan was like an important-ish character for the first couple of episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and like you see somebody like kind of like Stephanie, who also like seems to get a lot of like the screen time, and then she's an early boot too. And then you're left with who? Seabass? Why are you called Seabass? Your name's Sebastian. There's a Kellen. Angela's in the
I
final
like
four.
Kellen.
Oh my
Kellen's my
goodness,
season crush. I love Kellen.
If you like Hannah Shapiro, you're gonna love Kellen Bechtold.
Naomi, who were some of the players that stood out to you pre-merge that you kind of latched onto, or was it, through the gates, Dom and Wendell?
Well, Andrew, let me walk you through this because this was a season I was watching every week at the bar, getting drunk, and that's the only way that you can enjoy the season is with a drink in your hand at every moment. But I listened to Josh Wigler's amazing first one out. I listened to it for HHH and I listened to it here. And that podcast does a better job of giving me character information and story about every single person in this cast without even looking at their faces versus an entire season of Survivor. And my hot take is that this is one of the worst cast seasons in all of Survivor. Let's just look at it because Andrew, you and I know I put on Survivor New York. I spend so much time looking at everybody we have. You have the oldest man is 40, the oldest woman is 42. That's Angela and Brendan, whatever.
Shapiro, yeah.
Brendan's the real whatever for me in this cast. Then you have Michael Yeager's 18, cool, and you have not one plus size woman on this cast, right? Every woman is about a size 2, 4, 6, maybe an 8 or a 10. I doubt it.
Yeah. Wow. I honestly didn't even notice that.
Right. Because everything is so milquetoast about this season that all you can register is like Dom fighting with Chris Noble and Wendell's there too, and Wendell have a Laura have a relationship and Donovan's saying something in a weird little accent. But like you can't register that there's not really any plus size men either, but all of the women are so tiny. They're all like these like very pretty young women. And I'm not saying that that's something that can't exist on Survivor, right? But look at the next season. Look at David versus Goliath and how it's kind of vaguely similar, but there's a lot of tweaks, right? You have amazing people like Lyrsa and Elizabeth, who's like a mom. And like, we're losing. Is Angela the only mom on this season? That's honestly a good question. And
I think she might be.
Helen doesn't have kids, I believe. So that's crazy to me. That out of all the people on this cast, maybe 3 of them have children. This is, I'm just ranting about this season, but to me, this is the sign that this season has completely lost touch with like what Survivor really is meant to be. And, you and I both know, we all know here that they lost touch in the 20s too. But this is exactly where they really lost touch again, where it's just a bunch of hot people on an island who are all boring as shit. Plus Wendell and Dominic.
Well, it's funny because HHH in this season, I like to compare to seasons in the 20s where the only real difference is these people aren't recruited. Those people were, but they're playing the exact same. And in most cases, it's very... The character development is just not there. You don't care about any of these people. You want to feel bad for the Malolos when they're getting picked off, but besides Stephanie too, I really did not care about any of them going ever. And it's unfortunate because we start off with I will say a very fun pre-merger in Jacob. We all know that he's not going to do well, but it's fun for the episode because it's a double boot episode. Yeah, for the episode he's around because it's just like, all right, let's see what kind of shenanigans this person will get into. And it's very similar to Zane from Philippines where it's like, this person's probably not meant to last long in this game, but I'm going to enjoy the time that I have with him. So anyone have thoughts on Jacob before we move on to the other big storyline of the season?
I mean, yeah, you kind of nailed the nail on the head. Like Jacob is just like that one episode eye candy and ear candy because some of the stuff he says is really quite outlandish. But I do like Jacob in this season because he also gets to be the first one to go to the Ghost Island in the first place. So we kind of see what he's thinking and what we're thinking at the same time because this is our first time with Ghost Island is through Jacob. And then he's concocting his plan to say that he has an idol, and then he gets immediately called out for not having the paper.
Paper! Oh my god!
But also, like, I would buy that Jacob Derwin forgot the paper at the island, Like, he seems like the kind of guy who'd be like, oh shit, I left it there, fuck, I can't get it.
Maybe like
like,
the selling wasn't there. I don't know.
they sussed him out, or not even sussed him out. They kind of got the vibe that he was like super. He was this big super fan. So, and I think that's what it was. It was like, okay, Jacob the super fan didn't bring back the paper with, and Naomi, I understand your point on that, but it's just almost like it's so over the top, bumbling, fool almost that you're kind of it kind of sucks seeing him go. Especially when you see it on his face, like that he's been caught in his lie. But the two big, go ahead.
Oh, I have to say, so Jacob Derwin is a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Post his season, he and I became friends. Had a great time. Shout Andrea Belke's birthday party. Not to humble brag, but great time with hanging out. But Jacob is somebody who goes through a very difficult and unspoken part of Survivor, which is that you just get reality checked about your personality so hard that you start to hate the show. And I've been there where I've played live games. And I've gone like, I'm really social. I'm a social butterfly. It's gonna be great. And then everybody's like, we don't like you. And you just have to sit there and like, holy shit, people do not.
My life is a lie.
It's hard. It's really hard to go through. And that's what I really feel for him, especially with the Stephanie situation, because Stephanie's playing Survivor great. But then you see her be like, actually, I really could work with this guy, but we're all going to vote him out. And that to me showed, and Donathan's storyline in the season shows that I really think that you shouldn't vote people out in Survivor strictly based on if they're kind of like a goofy mess. Jacob Derwin immediately confesses to Stephanie that he doesn't have the idol. Clearly, This guy will just be honest with you. Like he's not Chris Noble, right? Chris Noble just doesn't listen to people. He's an asshole, whatever. Jacob Derwin is a perfect ally to keep in the game. So is Donathan, right? Donathan doesn't have the respect of a lot of people, but when you show him respect, he gives it back to you.
Exactly.
And Jacob Derwin got me more fantasy points in my Survivor draft than I think most of the players that I also had in my team. I think I had Sebastian, and like he scored way more points than Sebastian ever did. What a perfect Survivor character. Like I love Jacob dearly as a Survivor player because he represents what a lot of us would do.
Yeah, a lot, and he's one of these people, and I've talked about this on the actual Survivor hot takes as far as people that go from the online or live game community and go out and play these games. And I wish that more people from those communities would apply, because what you see a lot is, there's a lot of people in these communities that don't think they'll do well, but they apply and they end up, doing fairly well. But then you have all these other ones that like they buy into their bullshit in these communities where it's like, oh yeah, everyone's deeming this person to be some type of king of orgs or whatever. And it's like, well, if you really think you are, go apply for not even the real, you don't even have to apply for the real thing. Apply for a live game. Since you are buying into all of this hype that these people are giving you, go do this. You might fail, but who cares? The fact that you went out there and tested it in front of people is what really matters in the end. So I do give Jacob that point, because a lot of people from this side of the community would not do that because they don't want to fail and lose this allure that people have put on them in this org. This is turning to an org LRG, roasting, but it's true. Yeah. So if you are a part of the communities, no matter if you think you're good or think you're bad, apply for these live games, apply for Survivor, apply for Big Brother, and see how you do.
I just totally forgot the other thing is that Jacob Derwin literally voted me out of a live game. Like I literally forgot that until right now. But that's one of my favorite things is he got me. And it's again, you're exactly right. Get off the couch. It's the surreal of it all. Get off the couch and go try for yourself, because people talked a lot of smack about Jacob Derwin that I think when you watch this back, yeah, he was like excited. He was on Survivor. You're not going to do any better than him.
Exactly. So the two big main storylines besides the Dom and Wendell show this season, which we will get to, is the Ghost Island twist and Navidi Strong. We'll go with Ghost Island first because that is the name of the season. Jackson, what were your thoughts on what Ghost Island was presented as at the beginning, and do you think that the twist ultimately worked?
Visually, as a twist, it is you go off on this island and like it's like these spooky things, like your past mistakes will haunt you. And at first, I was kind of buying into it, like okay, something spooky is gonna happen. Okay, there's like the torch snuffers from like not every season, but most seasons. I could recognize like China torch snuffer in there, and I was like, oh wow, okay, what am I gonna get myself into? And then we get to these urns, and then there's like a bit of like a left or right scenario, and I'm kind of whatever. And then we see like these past relics that were past mistakes from past players, and I think that's really cool. I just I just wish past players got to use them. I wish like a Todd who voted
Yeah.
James out with those two idols was like, oh my god, I voted James out with these idols, you know? Or
Yes.
somebody that got screwed, like Eliza finding Jason Stick, you know? I just that's like my biggest gripe with
So if
Ghost
this was a
Island.
returnee season, you feel like it would have been better?
I feel like, especially returning seasons that have something to do with those like advantages, like oh my god, I'm gonna get screwed by the same advantage again, or I'm gonna own this advantage this time. It's not gonna get the better of me, type thing. Like Eliza with the stick, give her the stick.
Well, and the funny thing is, they use a lot of revisionist history with a lot of these twists and a lot of these
Yeah.
advantages, but also this concept that by you playing these advantages, you've redeemed this person from fucking up all these years ago. Just
No, yeah.
doesn't make sense. You playing. Uh, was it? It was Michael Yerger using the stick, and he says, "This one's for Ozzy." No, this one's for Eliza and Jason. If anything, it's that Ozzy that screwed up. It was the two of them, but mostly Jason that screwed up right there. So you look at all this, and then there's like, oh, the legacy advantage. Oh, it didn't work because Sierra went home. It's like, well, no, it still worked. It worked for someone else, but it's not like the legacy advantage just flat out shit the bed. It's just that it didn't work for the first holder. And so they try to, and it's weird the editing tricks they use with the flashbacks this season to like fit the narrative of what the advantage that they're finding is. And the entire time, because I've been watching it how I've been watching it, it's like that's not how it happened. And that's not that's not what the issue was with these advantages with these idols. Naomi, what were your thoughts on the actual Ghost Island twist? Do you agree with Jackson that it might have been better if they had returnees instead? Do you think that the season needed it at all? Because as we find out later, Ghost Island's not the only place you can find these advantages. You can also just stumble upon them on your beach.
I know, isn't that great? Ghost Island is everywhere. Ghost Island is a people, not a place.
It's a concept made by the patriarchy.
So that is me with Andrea's idol. I think post Ghost Island, I believe.
Okay.
But that was a lot of fun to hold that real Survivor immunity idol. And I think, honestly, my biggest gripe is like, why would you want to, like, if you're Andrea, if you're James, like, do we have to keep talking about this? Can we like move on from this mistake I made, please? I totally agree with you, Jackson. It should be a returning player season. And I think that inherently the flaw with Ghost Island to me is that when you go there, you don't automatically have something happen to you. That's the most deranged part of this twist. I'm sure you guys we all have thoughts to say about it. I just watched Survivor South Africa Return of the Outcasts, right? Returning player season where they had something called the Outpost, and every time you went to the Outpost, you didn't always go to the Outpost, but every time you went, something happened. And to me, it is egregious. Like, just give them a break from going to Ghost Island for one or two rounds rather than have them go and have, especially because the urns are like in order, right?
Yeah.
So that's clearly production. That's not even like you get a chance. Production is literally like, no. You just have to sit here, and we have to sit here with your fucking just cry to camera right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing out there. But I love the set design of it. Although I do like Jeff explains it as bad Survivor decisions, which I think is so funny, and not like regretful Survivors. He's like, oh, it's a bad decision. It can haunt you. And it's like, okay, I make bad decisions all the time. Sometimes I drink till 3 a.m., Jeff. Like, it doesn't haunt me all the time. Like, geez, chill out.
Just the next morning.
Find a better way to phrase it. It's so goofy.
And you are right. it's insane that we have actual episodes where we're sending people to Ghost Island and nothing happens. And it's like, well, why should I pay attention to anything that's happening right now? And that's a lot of where I start to doze off. It's because I know nothing's going to happen. I know that, it's going to be Navidi Strong for most of it. Why do I care about any of this the first time watching it all the way to the third time watching it? Um, Having said that, even with the actual twists, I feel like they were really stretching for like, Andrea went home with this in her pocket. It's like, do people really look at that as like some all-time, big moment that like, oh man, Andrea got screwed in Caramel? And it's like, well, no, because the way they phrase it is, Andrea's alliance turned on her. It's, well, no, she was going after Brenda, who was also in her alliance, and people decided to stick with Brenda and go against Andrea. But we have all of these twists that really the other big problem with the 30s, besides the editing problem, is they think that because Will Wallace had resume and big moves and all this stuff, every season we're just going to slowly add more to the point where you're sitting at tribal council this season and Wendell's wearing 3 or 4 necklaces, and one is actually actual immunity, 2 are idols. Sebastian's got his advantage. Dom has had a couple of advantages. Michael had advantages. Everyone has an advantage this season, to the point where you just don't care about any of them because there are so many advantages that it becomes diluted. So Jackson, in a perfect world, you're doing a season. Advantage wise, what are you going with? If we're just fantasy booking, what are you doing?
If I'm hosting my own season of Survivor and I get to pick the advantages, I think you got to go simple at first. You got to go 1 idol on each beach, whether that be 2 or 3. If there is a swap and like you went from 2 to 3, then a 3rd idol on that expansion tribe, go for it. You could sprinkle like an extra vote here, maybe a steal a vote. Both probably not. And then maybe some kind of different advantage. Like you're gonna see the idol nullifier next season. Maybe that's it. That I would call it there, because then you're right. It dilutes the strategic play. It just like, okay, what do you have? Okay, you only have an idol. Okay, what does Naomi have? She has 3 idols, a nullifier, and 3 extra votes. I'm working with her. Yeah, like it's. I feel like that tribal council in particular that you referenced, where Wendell's got 16 necklaces and has like an idol in each finger, is like a precursor of what's going to happen with the rest of the 30s and kind of into the 40s. It's like, hey, this is what Survivor is going to be like, and you're going to like it, says Jeff Probst.
Naomi, as someone who hosts a live game, not to say that you purposely try to avoid doing what they did on Ghost Island, but have you ever had the thoughts of, let's just see what happens if we just throw a whole bunch of advantages, or do you try to keep it as basic as possible?
Yeah, actually, Chris Lord texted me today because he had found in the shed like a vote. It's like an old vote, somebody voting for somebody else, and I said we got to put it on our Ghost Island. But to me, the failure of Ghost Island, well, first of all, kind of a shitty name. Like, yeah, I get it, it's the ghosts of the past, but like it really could have been called something a little bit different. It's like such a bad name for the season, I think. But love the little logo. One of my fave logos. Just so
yeah, it's actually a pretty fun logo. I will give you that.
I do not like to overpower advantages, but what I like to do in games is give people options for advantages with different outcomes. So, for example, in Survivor New York Season 4, we made a vote, we made it like a menu, a vote, advantage menu is what it's called. And you could either get a vote doubler, which you could double somebody else's vote, right? So the risk there is that they may not vote the way that you want them to, and you have an extra vote, but really they could use it against you. There was like a challenge advantage, and then there was, I think, that you could pick which tribe you went to. And it all comes with like risks and rewards and whatever. But to me, Ghost Island, here's where I think you could tweak it a little bit, right? what if you make some of the bad decisions like you find out what challenge is coming up. Hey, you're gonna go to Ghost Island. This is the challenge that the heroes lost, and Tom Westman got voted out of the game, right, or whatever. Like, or this is a challenge that somebody screwed up and it got them sent home. You get to know that challenge is coming up, and you can if it's an immunity challenge, you get to keep that to yourself. If it's a tribe challenge, you get like there's so much to do with like other elements of Survivor that sabotage somebody's game. And also, let's talk about the big thing here. Like, so many of these idols in the season are not played to much effect. Like,
no.
At a certain point, are you redeeming anything by just playing an idol that like wasn't gonna get you any votes cast to get you anyway? You know what I mean? Like, you don't redeem anything.
Is Michael the only one that successfully plays an idol this season?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just Michael. This one's for Ozzy.
That's the curse of Survivor in general, as we know, like these days, is that nobody's playing idols successfully because everybody is finding out about idols and then mitigating the damage of them. And exactly, it's exactly that. It's like if Yerger, if you like playing like the green idols from Heroes vs. Villains, being like, this one's for Russell. It's like, what are you talking about?
And it was wild because watching HHH yesterday and everyone shitting on Ben for, his idol plays and all that. Well, he's also the only one keeping his mouth shut that season that he has these things, which is a problem that everyone else runs into, that season of they just run their mouths, that they have these advantages, and they eventually get caught with their pants down, and they're like, well, what happened? And so, to Ben's credit, he kept his fucking mouth shut, and he was able to get his way, to that Final Four situation. One thing I do want to touch on, we did briefly talk about the cast. This is a very diverse cast, like race-wise, which in my head, that didn't start to happen until 41. But this season, David versus Goliath, not necessarily Edge of Extinction or Island of the Idols. We start to get these more diverse cast members. Yes, not in terms of age or size or anything like that, but you got to crawl before you can walk. But I did enjoy seeing, a lot of brown faces. No, a lot of people that didn't look the same skin tone wise, and that's just no one has to talk about that. It's just something I noticed. I have in my notes, this shit is so corny. And I'm assuming that meant when everybody goes to Ghost Island, they have to read, which has to be a prompt. They're telling them what to say. In 2007, this person did this, and now it's been sitting on Ghost Island for 10 years. I'm like, no, it hasn't.
Tomes of text that they have to read.
For 10 years. Fuck off. But this shit is so corny, and that's another thing where it's like, this doesn't. It is Survivor. It still feels like the show Survivor, but it's just at this point it almost feels like a. I don't even know how to describe it. Like a cartoon version of it, where it's like, let's just add all the idols and all the advantages, and let's just have fun with it. But we don't have fun with it. It's never fun. It's never fun until the final three with the tie, which we will get to, and that leads us to Naviti versus Malolo. Now, how I remember the season is Malolo just gets demolished, never wins, all that. Turns out they do win a couple times. They, it's not just a straight, they don't just take them straight out. But Naviti definitely has the characters on the season. So who were y'all rooting for the bulk of this season, and why?
Wow.
That's a tough one. But to kind of go back...
It shouldn't be.
to kind of go back and briefly touch on what you said. When you said that, the funniest image came into my head, because I'm thinking Michael or Jonathan goes to play their idol, and they're saying they're saying their speech, and they messed up on the word. The producer's like, okay, everybody.
It was 2006. It was 2006.
Nobody knows the idol. Nobody knows that. Okay, take two. It is. You're right. It becomes a little diluted. Now, in terms of who I was rooting for, I mean, I love the story of Wendell and Dom and Chris so much. Navidi was just kind of there for me. Plus, purple's the best color. Don't at me. Yeah, it's true. I'm sorry. I was also
You and
a
my
big
mom
fan
will
of
get along famously.
Dreamers, but what was that?
You and my mom will get along famously.
Oh, perfect. That's it. That's all I want in life, actually. I was rooting for a couple of Malolos, but it comes to a point where it's
Do you
almost
remember their
hilarious.
names?
There was a Jacob.
Oh, I was kidding. Oh, that was kidding. I was kidding. I was kidding.
That's about. But I'd say I was definitely like pulling for more Navidi. I was good there for the story that we already know.
Naomi?
So I also think that this season is like, I would call this total drama island is what this season is, because it's just like a bunch of like you said, cartoon characters, but also like just like a bunch of hot chicks on an island, buff guys on an island, and then like some weirdos thrown into the mix. I have to say that I really did love Jacob Derwin. I picked him based off of First One Out. He's someone I was rooting for. I really like Stephanie Johnson. I was always rooting for her. I was sad when she got voted out. And in the end, towards the end of the game, I really felt very desolate because I was like, damn, Dom and Wendell, one of them's going to win this thing. I was rooting for Wendell and Laurel. I love that alliance very much. But I kind of wanted somebody to break apart the power couple, but like I really didn't like Kellen and I didn't like Desiree and I didn't like Angela. Oh my God. And I was just so bored by everybody else that I was like, screw it. Like, let's pagong him. I do not care at this point. But I do have actually James Lim is always on my second chances cast because I think that he's somebody who kind of got screwed in a way where I'm so curious. He's such a smart guy, right? I would love to see what he has to do, what he wants to do this time in a second chances season. I do like James a lot.
Yeah, I really liked James for the screen time that he got. This is another one of these seasons where we get multiple swaps, and the fact that we get 2 swaps and people still stick on this whole Navidi Strong bullshit. And I'll tell you this, I did a drinking game for Samoa, and then I did a drinking game for HHH. I wish I'd held off on that and just did that drinking game today for Ghost Island, because I really want to see how turned, as the kids say, I would get if I drank every time someone said Navidi Strong. I know that it's a meme online, and I know that like in the past when I've watched the season, they say that phrase a lot, but you never really understand how much they say that until you start thinking drinking game. And that's when you realize they say that a whole lot, to the point where it almost comes off as a joke when people say it. It's like they have to understand that like people are laughing at them at this point. They're sticking to this. But for the most part, it works. And this is something that people don't really give enough credit to Laurel for. Laurel doesn't start off with Navidi. And in my head, she did. And so the fact that she was able to navigate 2 swaps where she was always on the bottom and still make the merge where Malolo just kind of gets decimated for the most part and is able to sit at the end. Yeah, she said at the end with the 2 people that everyone knew were going to win. But I do give Laurel credit for being the last Malolo, for surviving 2 swaps where she could have gone and navigating her way through the merge, never turning on her 2 big allies. So do y'all, like, on a rewatch, do you guys see merit in Laurel's game?
I'll start off by saying that I have an episode of Mike White Was Robbed with the great AJ Norris talking all about how Laurel was robbed. And I love that because not only you're talking about she survived 2 swaps on the bottom, but she was basically on the bottom of Malolo to begin with, right? It was like Donathan, let's say they don't, I was shocked that they only swap after 2 votes, but let's say they don't. Let's say it's like 3 or 4 votes. I think Donathan goes home next, and maybe if they send Donathan again, I think there's a good chance that they vote out Laurel in this spot because I think that you have the connection of basically everyone who's white on that tribe, but really you have like Michael and Libby, you have Brendan and Michael working together, so they're not going to vote out Libby, they're not going to vote out Jenna, they're not going to vote out James. So it really does become, I think, that like Laurel is kind of on the bottom of Malolo in the large group. Laurel is a really, really smart player. And when we watch her in Final Tribal Council, it's really devastating because everybody reams her out for not going against Dom and Wendell, but she says it exactly right. none of you gave me an option where I was going to end up in this spot with you. And that's, I think, in retrospect, right? I was watching it kind of frustrated at Laurel the first time I watched the season, but in retrospect, would you rather get third place or would you rather get fifth place and take out a big threat? You know what I mean? I would rather get third place.
Jackson?
It's tough to follow that up. Yeah, I too was in the boat on my first watch. Like, Laurel, what are you doing? Obviously, it's one of these two. Like, it's got to be it. And on the rewatch, I think she played her game perfectly. She goes home in almost any scenario. She's been approached. Her and Jonathan have been approached in the merge plenty of times. Hey, let's take a shot at Dom. Okay, Dom's got immunity. Let's take a shot at Wendell. She sticks to her guns, and maybe she sticks to her guns too long to her detriment. When does she take the shot? Who knows? Does she take a shot and still make it to the end? Probably not. Like,
well, and that's the thing is like, as the merge progresses, she doesn't like at any point that people can sit home and say she needs to make a move now. She needs to make a move now. There really is no move where she survives in the end, mainly because everyone is Navidi strong until they start to pick each other off, until Kellen gets pissed off. There's really sticking to this whole thing. So, like, it's not that she can't just pull people in because Malolos are always going to be on the bottom. And so I tried to watch this season through her and Kellen's eyes, specifically this time around. Just to, just get a different perspective on the season. And one, I loved Kellen. I remember watching this the first time, and I'm like, wow, they're trying to portray as the villain the episode that she went home. And this time around, it's like, no, she kind of has a point. These people do need to go. And I think I was just so far up Wendell and Dom's asses that I just didn't care, and I wanted Kellen to go. But watching it through Kellen and Laurel's eyes this time, you really start to root for them, and you really feel bad for Laurel because she's basically screwed from merge on, where there's no way. She's either going to get to the end and probably lose, or get voted out and lose. And so watching that final tribal council, Naomi brought up they were reaming her out, but also they were ignoring her for large portions of it. It was just directed at Wendell and Dom, and I think up to this point, the only time we've really seen that is with Troyzan and Game Changers, where like no one's paying him any mind. And to Troyzan's credit, I will always, him thanking them, even though he knows he's not going to win. I appreciate that, Troyzan. But you really feel for Laurel here. So anyway, merge happens, the Chris Noble vote happens, and why does Chris not play his idol here, folks? Does anyone know?
I actually don't know. I don't rewatch. I still don't know.
There is no real answer to this that I know of, but
I feel like this is like that classic situation where you're with your friends and you're like, oh my God, I really hate this person. And everyone's like, yeah. And you're like, no, I can't stand them. I think they're and you just get so mad about one person, right? I forgot how instant the Dom and Chris feud is.
Yeah.
It literally happens after the first also the first challenge is so funny to me because like the picks are hilarious. He picks Laurel and Michael Yerger, great picks, I would say, for a puzzle and athletic competition. And then Chris Noble picks Sebastian, and he picks Desiree, who then later fumbles more puzzles down the line. And I think it's like such a great contrast in like Chris Noble versus Brendan, who's like a coach and whatever. Yeah. I have to say that Chris Noble's an idiot, and I loved watching him lose this season. If there is a highlight of the season, I think it's him losing.
It is. I do think that Chris Noble is an idiot, but he's one of these fun idiots that you enjoy watching them on TV, knowing full well they're not going to win, and you're probably going to love it when they leave. As compared to Jacob, where, like, I did feel for the guy as he's getting voted out. With Chris, in the Chris-Dom rivalry, I was rooting for Dom because Chris just came off as just thinks he's smarter than he actually is. And a lot of his confessionals, I don't know if he's trying, if they're trying to portray him as a fool, or if they're trying to portray him as real, and he just still comes off as a fool. But his downfall is so fun. And the funniest thing is, Dom announces that he is voting for Chris, which means you know that you're getting at least one vote your way, and you know that Dom has a little bit of control over the game right now. And if you know that at least one person coming after you, there's probably going to be about 4 to 5 others that are in that boat, which means this is the perfect time to play something to save your ass, even if it's played wrong. At least you're protected this round, and you can rally the troops the next time around. He doesn't. He gets sent to Ponderosa. He still votes for Dom in the end, but Chris Noble is a fool. Moving on through the merge, sadly.
Wait, hang on, Andrew. We gotta, Andrew. You can't skip over.
No, yes, okay, yes.
Well,
yes,
first
okay.
I'll say this: it is a travesty that they deleted the Chris Noble Ponderosa rap, because that's
is it not on YouTube anymore?
They deleted it because I think it's something with the music rights. One of the greatest pieces of Survivor lore of all time. But not only that later in Winners at War in Ponderosa,
they sing
Wendell and Adam get off the boat and go like something Ponderosa, they call me Sammy, so it's literally a direct quote from the rap. And it's so fucking funny. But I mean, we have to talk about Wendell's. What I have to say is like possibly my favorite voting confessional of all time. I mean, actually, Dominic's is really funny in this episode too. I think people forget how funny his is.
Chris Noble. Anyone, Naomi, you brought it up. You can talk about it.
Well, first of all, Chris Noble, it's been a pleasure serving you coffee for 21 days. It's fucking hilarious. The best part, Jackson, I want to know what your favorite part of this voting confessional is, because my favorite part is that every time Wendell thinks he's done, he's like, wait a minute, I gotta say something else. Like he just every time, and then you hear the music in the background go like shing, like every time he just reopens his vote to say something else. It's so good.
It's honestly the build-up, because before we even get to the tribal council as a whole, we see like Dom and Wendell kind of talk about Chris. You know, he thinks he's a fool, and then we cut to Chris Noble kind of going like, I'm so running this game. And then it's like, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and I want him gone. And it's just, it was, Survivor made Chris Noble look like an idiot. Is he? Yes. Is he that much of an idiot? Who knows? My favorite part of the Wendell is like how he's like, hey man, respect to that. We fought together, we won together, but you're trash.
Yeah.
And then pick up eraser would always like make me cry no matter what. Put the pencil down. Pick up an eraser.
Fun little editing thing that they did at Final Tribal when Wendell's talking about how he related to everyone. He's like, me and Dez used to talk about who's the better rapper, this person and this person, and then it cuts to Chris.
Yeah.
It's like a little zoom in on Chris. I'm like, yeah, I guess they forgot Chris too.
Yeah, I love when he goes, you're trash, and he pauses, wait, at rapping. Like, I don't want to make you feel bad about yourself, but like, at rapping, you're trash.
As the merge progresses, the VD Strong thing continues. This Wendell and Dom thing continues, and it all comes to a head when Kellen decides, "Hey, we have to, after the family business. We have to try to make this move now." Well, I guess Desiree also tries to. She gets caught with her pants down because Laurel rats her out. Chris Noble tries to make a move. No one likes Chris, so he's got to go. But Kellen's the first person to like have this plan and not have it really leak out to anyone. They didn't leak out to the big names. And so going into that tribal the first time around, I'm like, holy shit, like she might actually pull this out. And ultimately, Laurel and Donathan decide to go with Wendell and Dom in that situation. But I think my rationale behind Laurel making that move then is because Kellen had just gone after her the last tribal, and I feel like she was having a hard time trusting her in that situation. And I wish she would have gone with Kellen, but it sucks. So at Final 7, Kellen once again, now playing from the bottom, she eventually goes. Everyone goes out with a lot of people go out with a lot of grace this season, which is something that I'm starting to realize. Basically, 35 on, where people are getting voted out, and it doesn't come off as overly pissed off. to when we get to 42, when almost everyone that gets voted off in 42 is very gracious as they're on their way out. So I do like that we're starting to get to that point in Survivor history, whether people like it or not.
Really? I love when people are bitches on their way out. Like Gonzalez goes sad when she gets voted out. I go sad. And like you'll get to it next season, but when Natalia gets voted out, and it's just like you're so stupid. Like she's so mad about it.
She's sitting in the front, right? She like turns around, and then she turns back.
Yeah, like Alec got her way out the door. I mean, tune in to next week, to tomorrow's episode to find out.
Tomorrow night. Oh almost done.
Can we talk about the purpling of Chelsea?
I was going to get to that.
Great.
Oh yeah, I was going to get to that.
Or were you going to purple her in this podcast?
No, I do want to talk about Chelsea because you understand why certain players are kind of buried in edit throughout the history of the show. Whether they just they don't really do much, they're kind of boring, or they're just not relevant to the storyline that they're building. But with this season, I feel like all of Navidi, with the exception of maybe fourth place, I already forgot her name. Angela. Wow. So with the exception of Angela and Chelsea, really, were like these big characters. And with Chelsea, it felt like she is a big character. We're just not seeing her. And she wins 2 immunities, I'm pretty sure, and ends up with 3 confessionals, if I remember correctly. And she's a big part of this Navidi alliance. I would say she's probably 4th in command behind Kellen as far as the hierarchy on that tribe. So why do y'all think that all of it, they chose her as the person over Angela or under Angela to just not pay any attention to?
I think you got to go back to the editing. I think the question is, is the cast pretty bad or is the editing pretty bad? I'm more in favor for the editing because we do see on Ponderosa a lot of people that we just kind of forget about. The one that comes to mind for me is Michael and Jenna. We learn more about Michael than 18 years old, and we know Jenna exists too. And we see that they are fully fleshed characters, and even Seabass wasn't even really that flashed out as he could be. Some of the deleted scenes are really funny. An all-time quote that I will always remember is Malolo, the Malolo cannot get any more Lolo than the Malolo low. And it's just funny. And then going back to Chelsea, it's just, I think they just wanted more time for Dom and Wendell and Ghost Island.
I also is Sebastian the first person to say Stony Baloney on Survivor?
Probably.
Fairly certain.
See, there you go, iconic stoner king. I think this is a greater problem with Survivor, which is that Survivor does not have women in the story producer position and does not have a lot of women in the editing room. And it contributes to, and women at the very highest level, right, or the producer level. And it contributes to this every season where it's mostly women who are getting purpled and they don't understand how to convey the social game of a Chelsea, which is that everybody loves her. They're obsessed with her. Everybody came out of that season being I don't know why Chelsea's getting no airtime. She was the funniest person I've ever met. She saved my child's life. She literally, they all loved her so much. I think it's a shame, although at the same time, I watch her on my screen and I'm like, she's not that exciting a talker. I feel like I am always fascinated by people who get on Survivor who are really boring speakers. Jenna and Chelsea are the best examples of this, where they'll just give a confessional and I'll be like, oh, my mind has gone elsewhere. Oh no, I did not care what they had to say. And I just feel like this is a thing where Survivor loves people's stories, and then they get on the island, they're like, you know what, I don't really care that she's a cheerleader and an EMT. Fuck her. And then they move on. This season is very misogynistic to me, I have to say. That's my hot take of this season.
Okay. I feel like I get the most out of Chelsea on the family visit. Oh, she has a sister. That's cool. That's really it. And it sucks because she wins immunities, and I feel like in those episodes she should be getting more airtime, and in her boot episode she should be getting more airtime, and none of it happens, and it's super unfortunate. And I compare it to Michelle Fitzgerald in Co Wrong, where Michelle, she still gets enough airtime, I guess. But it's constantly just like whenever she does get to the end, inevitably, and people at home, the casuals, are sitting there saying, well, why should I care about this person? She didn't do anything. How did she win? When in reality, once again, a lot of people spoke out about how they enjoyed Michelle out there, that she had a really fun personality. They felt they could relate to her, but we don't really see it, in full force because it's the Aubrey and Ty show that season, and then with this one, people are saying all this about Chelsea, but we've got to spend time with the people on Ghost Island. We need to find out what happens next, which is nothing. Nothing happens on Ghost Island ever. We need to find out what Dom and Wendell are up to this episode. It's like, well, probably the same thing they've been doing all game, which is running the show and trying to figure out how to get everyone out so they can sit at the end, which is what ultimately happens. I've never read anything that Chelsea has actually said on the subject, but have either one of you before I move on? No.
Chelsea getting pummeled by society now. No, but that's also, that's part of Survivor, right? Is there's sometimes people who get cast who are really boring, but I couldn't agree with the Michelle comparison more. How do you, you film them at camp for 24 hours a day? How do you not have footage of somebody making somebody laugh? You don't have a clip of someone telling a good joke? Where is it?
Especially if they're the funniest person on the island,
Yeah.
It's got to be there.
Yeah, and I don't want this to turn into me just ranting about production because I've done that enough in the 30s. Why are there all these advantages on the main beaches when the entire point of the season is for people to go to Ghost Island and get said advantages? Does anyone have any thoughts? Or is it because Survivor thought everyone wanted all these advantages on the season, which is what I think it is. I think that this is the point of the season, of the show's history, where they're just like, you know what? People want big moves. The only way we can really get big moves is by giving all of these advantages. Yes, we have a twist where people have to go off and get these, but that's not enough. We really need them here too, because Dom and Wendell aren't making it out to Ghost Island every time. So we need them to have screen time. So let's make sure that we have stuff here at the beach as well.
What if they brought this stuff back for Winners at War? What if it was just save it for WAW? They don't do the twist or anything, right? That they maybe hey, I found Andrea's idol on the edge of extinction. I don't know. I agree with you. Can you believe that the Island of the Idols is a better twist than Ghost Island? Technically, that had more interesting elements.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they both do fuck all to help anyone win the game.
No, didn't do shit.
Yeah. What, Tommy didn't even go to the Idols? So I think Wendell went once or twice to Ghost Island, but it doesn't help him win the game. Fun little thing I have in my notes. I know I already brought it up, but I love reading my notes back. It says, "This one's for Ozzy, ... fuck you." I just hated it. Was such a goofy line, and I liked Michael Yerger this season, but him saying that, I just cringed in my bed. Why are you saying this? It's not for Ozzy, and it's not really Ozzy or Eliza or Jason. None of these people's legacies are going to somehow be saved because you played this the right way. Mainly because Jeff will always go out of his way to point out that these people fucked up even now. So you've kind of just retconned that, all of Ghost Island at this point. We get to the final four. Well, the final five, 6 and 5, Donathan really starts to, realize, hey, I need to fuck this thing up and, burn some bridges on my way out, and maybe I can stay. I do enjoy Donovan this season. I do think that he is a character that we learn a lot about, and I appreciated his story. He was when he says, we don't have many African Americans where I'm from. I'm like, oh, Donathan, I love you.
But then at one point he calls James exotic, and you go, "Oh boy, they should have left that on the cutting room floor."
He called James exotic, and then he says, "I want Laurel to be my friend. We don't have many African Americans." I'm like, you know what? Kentucky's fun. Whatever. What were y'all's thoughts on Donathan as a secondary character in the season that turned into a main character in the finale?
Yeah, Donovan is definitely like a character that we actually do get the pleasure of kind of getting to know, despite what we've been saying before. And yeah, like the off color, barring the off color remarks that he kind of like, oh, okay, buddy. But he's a fun character. He's somebody that I think an average casual viewer is gonna root for. He talks funny and he makes like these truth bombs. Like that's his strategy towards the end. Like, oh, this is what's happening and you guys don't know about it. And it's like the truth bombs that amount to nothing, but it's kind of like he's trying. He knows that his position's kind of fucked at the end. And he's like, okay, I'm going to try to fight it. This is how I'm going to do it. And it kind of goes with his character, and I kind of find him very endearing. He does make some mistakes, but I think that's like a lot of characters. So he's a pleasure to watch.
Donathan is almost like the bizarro Colton, like this sort of like weird guy from the South who's really young and says some off-color things, but actually he's very nice and like doesn't say really really offensive shit, and instead just kind of says a little bit of like, oh, he's 25.
He just doesn't know. He just doesn't know anybody. Yes.
Yeah. I do really like Donathan. I think Donathan's also a big supporter of like the fans after the game, and I think that he's very kind with his time and his efforts. And what a name, Donathan. Who the fuck is named Donathan? Donathan is.
I won't say. I was gonna say hillbillies, but I guess I did say it. All right, whatever.
My other thing about Donathan is that like I will always admire a player who doesn't go down without a fight. Like you don't let me in on those, bro. Iconic. You know what I mean? Like he's scrappy to the point where in my memory, the number one thing about Ghost Island that I screw up is I think that he got 4th place because I can't remember Angela for F. Like I can't remember her whatsoever, and so Donathan is 4th place in my mind.
In my head, that was the same way for me, but I was like, but I don't remember Donathan doing fire making. So like what especially this time around, like, does he get voted out? Like I don't understand. So, and it's funny because when I brought up Morgan earlier, and it's like, who the hell's Morgan? I remember Chelsea over both Morgan and Angela, and Chelsea gets less screen time than both Morgan and Angela. I think because Chelsea is now a meme, purple Chelsea is now a meme. But Angela is she's just not there. She's not even invisible. Like she's there. Like she's in focus and everything. It's just
deep throats a slug. She's there.
Yeah, but the family visit. She's not the first one, so I'm like going through my head of who they had to get to, and even then, when I've been watching this all day, I'm like, okay, well they, this person. Oh, Angela, here's your daughter. It's like, oh yeah, Angela. I kept forgetting about her throughout all of this. Final 3. We've got the dynamic duo, and we've got Laurel. Going in, the first time I watched it, I didn't think that Laurel had a chance. Not that I wasn't, hoping that she could put on a good show, but I just didn't think she would stand a chance against the two of them. The second time I watched it, I slept, I think, through the Final Tribal. This time around, I was awake. You guys saw me. I really, like I said earlier, I really felt bad for Laurel in the situation. But I do want to focus on Wendell and Dom right here because I do feel like they were both fighting for, fighting for their lives, I guess. And I really felt for Dom. And Dom almost had a Mike Turner moment where Dom thought that he was just playing this character in certain moments so that things would happen. And what it turned out to be is a lot of people got pissed off at him because they thought he was being a bully. And he's sitting there saying, you guys know me, like, for the most part, I wasn't like this. It would just be in these moments. And at some point, he does apologize. And I do feel like it was sincere. And it's similar to the Mike Turner thing in 42, where he didn't realize he wasn't playing this overly loyal game, and he has that moment at Final Tribal where he's like, you just see it on his face, and he even mentions this. It's like, oh yeah, like I guess I wasn't doing all these things that I said that I was doing, and I called it coming to Jesus moment. But what did you all think of the Dom versus Wendell Final Tribal? Do you think that it was won or lost there, or do you think that people had already had their minds made up? Because based off the votes, it's first five, last five out. So how do you guys think they performed? Jackson, you can take Wendell. Naomi, you can have Dom.
I'll go first then. Wendell his performance was kind of meh. I'm on the boat that most of their minds are made up. Maybe like an Angela could have been flipped either way. But Wendell's performance definitely was kind of taking back some of Dom's credit. Like, because a lot of people that voted for Dom thought Dom was this huge hulking mastermind and was irresponsible for every one of them for leaving. Wendell did try to fight back and say like, "Hey, so I deserve some of the credit for taking all of you guys out." And even Dom like had like a little laugh chuckle, like, like I'm the mastermind. Dom's. So I think Wendell was trying to play catch up on the strategic side, but Wendell did find groove and having people kind of vouch for him. The one that comes to mind is Seabass, like where Seabass is kind of coming after Dom, kind of putting him on his back foot. Like, yo, Dom, you play, like we said, you play this like social game. What's good with that? And Wendell's kind of capitalizing on this as a social capital, if you will. So I think he definitely played a little catch up strategically and was like, hey, this is my social game. Like, it dominated, and it did. So I think he did really well, but I'm on the side that most of this jury for 36 had their minds made up.
I think that's really fair. And I think that for Dominic, I think Dominic has this personality that I think you can kind of notice if you watch the season all the way through, where he's like, and you can see it kind of when you watch the Challenge USA too, right? It's like he's kind of a guy who doesn't let other people tell him what to do. And so in a certain way, that means he tells other people what to do. And then it becomes this cycle of like, he's like, well, you're going to do, like, think about the fact that he bluffs. Chris Noble pulls him aside. Is like, do you have an idol? He's like, no. But he does. And then he's like, how do I mitigate this? I'll show Chris Noble a fake idol. Like, what are you doing here? Like, it's so crazy. Like, the idea doesn't come across that you like find a fake idol with Chris Noble and be like, oh my God, dude, whatever. But I think that Dominic has a very, and I'm not saying this is a reflection of his person or who he is. I've met him. He's nice. He has a very arrogant way of speaking sometimes, a very cocky way of speaking. And it comes across like you just said, Jackson, where like Wendell will say something and he'll kind of laugh and shake his head and it feels really rude. And I think that in some ways, like he particularly, Dominic didn't get the votes of Kellen, of, oh my God, there it goes. Wendell gets Kellen, Angela, and Chelsea's vote, as well as Donathan and Sebastian. And I think a lot of those people are the really emotional players. Whereas like Chris, Desiree, Jenna, Libby, Michael, Chris and Michael in particular are the very sort of like strategic and like kind of players. And it makes all the sense in the world that in the end, Laurel votes for Wendell, because I think that Wendell played the better survivor game of like, let's work as a group to eliminate the people that we need to eliminate to get to the end. Where Dominic half the time was like, yo, Chris Noble's coming for me. Are we doing anything about this? Chris Noble wants to vote me out. Yes, we know. We know Dominic. He wants to vote you out.
He told us. He told all of us, and he told us we also need to vote for you. But
get over to the water well.
So we're not going to do it. Yeah, the scene at the merge where Chris has literally everyone at the water well except for Dom and Wendell, and they're just sitting by the tree like, all right, let's just go ahead and just nip this in the bud, which I'm so glad they did. Ultimately, we have our first tie vote in Final Tribal history, which is the best part of this entire season. I woke up for it. And, you know, at that point, Naomi said it off camera, but as I was watching it, you can kind of see on Dom's face that he knows that it's over. And you feel for him at the reunion. You know, the vote's red. Wendell wins. Hooray! and we move along our merry way. We have Eric and James come out for Probes to laugh at them again. James says he doesn't even watch the fucking show anymore because Probes has ran his stuff into the ground, and puts an end to this season. Now, in the description for this video, I say, I look at Ghost Island the way that a lot of people look at One World, where a lot of people look at One World and say, oh, it's just Kim steamrolling, so it's really boring. On a rewatch, One World had, I enjoyed the Women's Alliance as a whole, and it was full of Looney Tunes once again, but, it was fun. I could relate to a couple people in the season. As compared to this one, where this one bored me, full of Looney Tunes, and it's a steamrolling, and it just... Even, it came home again, and I always forget about that. I always forget that through all of this, we have another black winner because I'm so focused on the duo that when a black man eventually wins the season, it's like, yeah, which is cool, but I wasn't jumping for joy over that aspect of the win, as compared to Vecepia, Earl, and Jeremy, and crying when Marianne won. Overall, Jackson, final thoughts on Ghost Island.
This is a season I tend to want to forget about, because of the very glaring problems with the season for a viewer. It almost becomes laughably obvious. It becomes a little stale at times. The twist sometimes just simply doesn't make sense to me. And sometimes the players that go to Ghost Island don't even play. And it's kind of like, well, what's the point? Well, I think there is a little bit more to enjoy on a second watch. I fell in love with the pre-merge a lot on this watch, as I've kind of mentioned before. Like I said, Jacob is candy for an episode. Who likes candy? Everyone loves candy. You kind of do see the story of Stephanie kind of flash out a little bit, and I think she should also be on a second chance ballot, personally. Excuse me. Morgan getting sniped is kind of like the only moment where Wendell and Dom were kind of like, oh, we're in trouble. So that was kind of cool, knowing how the rest of the season was going to go. James was a character. Also, underrated, getting voted out face of all time. Looks at the camera, looks at Jeff and goes, and it made me chuckle. And then, honestly, Bradley kind of also gave the purple edit this podcast.
Bradley sucked.
Oh, wow. Hot take.
You don't like him?
I was not a Bradley guy. I was not a Bradley guy.
In terms of you don't like his character, or you wish for his downfall? Or both?
I wish for his downfall. His character was fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, his character was fine.
I think he's one of the best pre-merge villains in Survivor.
Yes, and I don't like villains, so yeah.
He's bad.
I was like, wow, I really want Brad. I really have strong emotions that he loses. I really hope he loses. I know he does lose, but I really hope he gets his comeuppance. And I think that's a good pre-merge villain. Chris Noble is a great merge boo, and then we know what the story is. It's going to be a long time before I watch the season again, but it has its good moments, and I think people forget about it.
Naomi?
I think, Jackson, you fully got me on board. I think that this pre-merge is better than the post-merge. I think there are way more sort of hectic moments. I wrote down a couple things. One is Jacob Derwin says when he gives Morgan the legacy advantage, he says, I think Morgan and I will make the merge, which is great. Literally back-to-back photos.
Back-to-back, yeah.
There's a moment where Dom is talking to Bradley about Libby, and he's like, she's so dangerous. She's like a total seductress. And it just cuts to Libby in like a bubblegum pink bra and like braids in her hair. And she literally looks like she's like a farm girl. And it's like, okay. Someone is projecting, methinks. And Dirty Rice Sock, classic. You literally can't write that. Dirty Rice Sock is iconic. It remains iconic. But I just have to say that I think that what is underrated about this season, we mentioned it a little bit, is the very incredible alliance between Laurel and Wendell. I think that a lot of people are going to say that Laurel just votes for Wendell because they're both Black, but I don't think it's that. I think that they very clearly cultivated a friendship over the days on the island that meant a lot to both of them. And that's how you win Survivor, is you cultivate relationships with the people around you so that they vote to give you money. That's how it works. And I think that, very rarely do we get to see multiple African American contestants in the end together, and I think it's something to be celebrated every time.
I think it's the first time since Fiji. I'm fairly certain this might be the first time since Fiji. No, that's a lie. It's first time since Cambodia.
Yeah, since Cambodia. But even that, the gap between Cambodia and Fiji is such a wide berth. Like,
overall for me, like I said, it's so dull. And I want to eventually watch Ghost Island and enjoy it because there is a Black winner, because we have 2 of the 3 Black final 3, because of the diverse cast, because of the cartoon characters on the show that do provide fun moments, because Kellen is hot, because we do see these old clips from the show, and it's so surreal watching it like this, where they're showing clips from seasons that in real time have happened 15 years ago, but for me would have happened like 2 weeks ago, and I still feel nostalgic watching those clips today. For me, I'm going to give Survivor Ghost Island a 2.75 out of 5, which still is not my lowest. It'll never be my lowest because Thailand exists. I think right now, if I were to look at it, where is it? Oh, I think right now 2.75 puts it it's with South Pacific and just above Karamoan. So I have it. It's better than Karamoan. It's on the same level, South Pacific. The only difference is there's nothing overly problematic with this season. Jackson, thank you so much for coming on. We've been planning this since the beginning. Like, you were one of the first people that I had scheduled in. So thank you so much for coming on for this. Naomi, thank you for hopping in. I didn't expect to do an hour and 15 on Ghost Island, so thank you both. We must have. Naomi is one of the producers for Survivor New York. There will be a link to their YouTube channel in the description and the Facebook post, Instagram post, Twitter. So please follow them on YouTube and on all social medias. Yeah,
first 15-minute exclusive just dropped of the season with Andrew in it. Oh my God, Survivor New York Gentleman Island.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yes, I am on the cast. But yes, please check it out. I don't know when apps are going to drop for it, but please apply. It is an amazing game. And we will see everyone after Survivor David versus Goliath. Thank goodness. A good season.